So let's just start briefly. I mean, let's just look back at the history of Apple. I mean, it's quite remarkable. I mean, from this little startup in Palo Alto to the world's most valuable company, it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, even when we started, I mean, sales were going to be very tiny for a computer that read in programs off of cassette tape, you know.
Yeah.
But even right from the start, we were actually an international company.
Yeah.
A guy joined us about the time we came out with the floppy disk, but a little before that, actually joined us to market in Europe. And another guy came by and wanted an Arabic version done, so I sat down and programmed the character generator and wrote my code so it would go from right to left with Arab characters, and that was sold quite a bit in Saudi Arabia. So we had little presences around the world, and then everybody copied the Apple II, so it was the biggest selling computer all over the world, and that never quite happened to that extent for the Macintosh.
Yeah. It was my first computer, a Mac.
Yep.
The all-in-one.
Yeah.
1 to 8, I remember.
Yep.
Could run one program at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really that much of a computer, even as to what it could do compared to the DOS machines for the price.
Yeah.
But it was the future.
Yeah.
It was like where Apple likes to put itself, but it might have been a few years early.
Yeah.
Because the Macintosh made a lot more sense once it was cost of memory came down.
Yeah. And what's it been like looking back at it? I mean, the last few years have been, the cult of Mac has become really something. Steve Jobs has become an iconic figure in business and computing.
Yes. Well, people want those iconic figures, and they want symbols.
Yeah.
And it's easy to, when you can find a person that you can attach that kind of a symbol to, it just resonates so much. I'm always afraid that a person like this treated like that could be like a cult leader.
Yeah.
Have too much power to take people in even wrong directions or bad directions.
Yeah.
They could be like a religious leader.
Yeah.
But it's very well deserved because the sort of thinking and products that he brought to the world, really the world was stumbling, especially in terms of phones that could reach the internet. It was stumbling without realizing the formula for making a phone a computer. So I'm very, so Steve deserves it. He never really seemed to want it or go for it. I mean, I don't think he liked the fact that people treated him that way.
Yeah.
It's just that his only goal was, how do I be constructive and make this company great?
Yeah. And he seems to be imbued at all stages of his life, and I'm sure when you were working with this desire to be great, to be insanely great. Mm-hmm. Is that your experience in the early days?
Yes. Well, he stumbled into the Apple II computer was a really good start for a personal computer company. That gave you a company with a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that was the only product we developed with no money at all.
Yeah.
And from then on, you had a lot of choices, and we actually had quite a few failures with the money. Even the early Macintosh failed. But it was so exciting that this was so different a machine than anyone had ever seen before. The mouse, menus, windows on the screen, little icons, graphics, and pictures. Yeah. It was such a great. I think that was really what stimulated Steve to here came the phrase insanely great.
Yeah.
And I think every product from then on kind of has to meet the achievements you've had in your prior life. He didn't let up and say, "Oh, good, I'm just going to be a businessman and run a company."
Yeah.
Oh no, this company stands for me.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Apple stood for Steve. Every product that came out was a personal representation of himself, which is why he had to have them so perfect.
Yeah.
And also, if you're not an engineer, that helps.
Yeah.
Because you have to what do? You fix every little detail, and you're more like what the customers see.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't see the engineering. So Steve was very good at marketing for Apple.
Yeah.
Very good at understanding what would go and what wouldn't, what engineers to believe and which ones not to. That whole personal touch.
Yeah.
It's more knowing people, being like a psychologist inside.
Yeah.
And knowing how people think and work, and how the world is organized. I think that's more important than actually having the engineering talents. Although you've got to look for the best. You can't take anything but the best for a company like Apple for engineering.
Yeah. I agree. I got to interview him once a few years ago, and the only question I could ask was, that I asked was, buys its user experience. I mean, this is what I think the great gift Apple's given the world: the ease of use, and whether Windows copied Mac and Android copied iOS, and all of these, what you've got is the end result is that computer and technology is infinitely easier to use for everybody.
And it's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
But it's so close to us now, and it's so wonderful when it works. But we're gonna make it work even more. I mean, the way I'm speaking to you.
Yeah.
Because someday a computer's gonna understand it all.
Yeah.
So, but Apple's sort of the leader in bringing all computing devices in that direction of being more like a real human brain.
Yeah.
Closer to it. We don't know the formula for a brain yet. I'm not going to pretend that.
Yeah. So what are the big innovations that you see coming in the next 5 years or 10 years in terms of computing and access?
Sure. Bandwidth is a real stumbling point because I don't have broadband at home, and I'm in hotels most of the time, and they usually don't have broadband. This hotel's very good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to improve or not, because carriers are kind of divide themselves up country by country.
Yeah.
And there isn't, if you've got kind of a sort of a monopoly, and every carrier is sort of a monopoly, you don't have a huge incentive to, it's governments themselves usually that take a country in a direction towards broadband.
Yeah.
Do we need faster processors? The problem is, a processor could be 1 billion times faster and still not solve some problems in as long as the universe has existed. It needs an approach to problems that comes from human intellect to solving them is more important. However, we have an awful lot of, we're getting so close to the atomic level in our chips. The density, where Moore's law reaches its limit. And that's kind of close to the density of the human brain.
Yeah.
The internet, I heard, has about as many nodes as we have neurons in the brain. So it makes sense that the internet is the first place that you start asking questions that you would normally ask a brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting answers. I think we discovered that by accident. We didn't build the internet to be a brain.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to lead us to eventually discovering, and I'm not going to say for sure in 5 to 10 years, but discovering clues that lead us to consciousness. And I think consciousness will be of the internet first.
Yeah.
I have no idea how it's going to express itself. We're going to, there's a need for faster chips already that take much less power.
Yeah.
How much you can get done for how much power, is basically how much the machine you carry in your pocket is like a real person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's still needs for that, and a lot of breakthroughs in the chip making area could lead to big ones there. I've been saying for quite a long time that I thought the future of technology over this time frame was, and this was before Apple had Siri.
Yeah.
A year before they had Siri, it existed. And I discovered things I could do with Siri that just amazed me. The way I want computers to be easy to use. I want them to understand my voice when I'm talking to you, when I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
When I first had my new message pad, I hand wrote a note one day. Sarah, the first day I had it, Sarah, dentist, Tuesday, 2 p.m. And then after I wrote the note on a notepad, I saw a button called Assist. And I clicked it. It opened up a calendar.
Yeah.
Tuesday at 2 p.m. it put in a note for the dentist, and it said Sarah, out of my contact list.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I wrote the note for myself, but the computer understood me. And ever since then I've wanted that.
Yeah.
Siri would answer questions for me. What are the 5 largest lakes in California? What are the prime numbers greater than 87? And I was just sure that that's the future of the world.
Yeah.
That it will make fewer mistakes. It will get to understand the way humans speak. For example, I use the wrong words sometimes. I use the wrong emphasis in grammar. I stutter. I stop and start. I say 5. I mean 6. Eventually, our speaking programs are going to work like that, so it becomes just so natural. And the more that happens, the more we're going to love our devices.
Yeah.
Because the more they're going to be like real people.
Yeah.
And eventually, I think another thing's going to happen in our mobile world devices. They're going to start paying attention to us, our own faces, and the world around us.
Yeah.
And not only offering, augmented reality clues, but also pointing out that, oh my gosh, Steve, there's something you've been looking for is over in that store there. Over to the right, you know.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to become more intelligent about our, you know, the things that matter to us wherever we are.
Yeah.
A lot of location dependent stuff, but
Yeah.
that means knowing you as a person very
Yeah.
well.
And being a bit like my mother.
Yeah,
There's
it'd be nice.
nothing-
I mean,
Yeah.
for the sake of privacy, I'd
Yeah.
rather the whole world doesn't know it. Every advertiser in the world doesn't know it. But I want my iPhone to know everything about me. I really do. I want it to be my best friend and my guide.
I know that you're a big fan of Android, but you use an Android phone occasionally.
Well, actually, I'm a big fan of good products of any type. So I'm a big fan of some Androids, and I know that they have some good features.
Yeah.
But I don't go feature by feature because you know a lot of people say, "Oh, this has one feature and the iPhone doesn't have it," or
Yeah.
this has a feature on the iPhone that doesn't exist on Android, and they make it infinite in value.
Yeah.
So that determines it's the only reason you can buy this one product. I'm not that religious.
Yeah.
I just like great products. I'm an Apple person.
Yeah.
So you know, my main emphasis is I always want the iPhone to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
When I see something good on an Android, though, I'm not going to call it lousy.
Yeah.
I have some Apple fanboy friends that will just call these things lousy when they're actually good, and I wish we had them on the iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, some features. So it's not really bad. And also by being very multi-platform, using them all regularly all the time, I know how to speak to people who have
Yeah,
Androids. And basically I'm not going to tell them, oh, you're just totally got the wrong machine.
Yeah.
I know that for their life, they're getting good use out of it, and they have the right
Yeah.
machine. And
Yeah.
they're doing as much as people do with their iPhones. Actually, maybe more, because I think a lot of times people buy things like iPads
Yeah.
because it's the least threatening platform to somebody who is scared that they don't know as much as all the
Yeah.
techies about computer equipment. And that's, you know, 80 or 90% of us, that's who we are.
Yeah.
We're really afraid, even if we act like we know some things we just read, we're scared of it, and it's a lot safer with the Apple products than others.
And the big launch this month is Windows 8 and Windows Phone. Any thoughts about those? Have you tried them?
I
What have you thought about them?
I have a Lumia 900 Windows Phone, and I actually am very amazed at the visual presence. Not only the quality of the screen, the fact that they did something very unusual in that whatever you call it, Metro user interface. Very different than Apple's. They have a lot of clues on the screen visually about things. So I actually like it very much.
Yeah.
Because
Me
it
too.
doesn't, I don't use it as one of my main phones
Yeah.
right now, because it doesn't have enough voice control.
Yeah.
And whether it's Apple or Android, I really want natural voice
Yeah.
speaking questions and directions to my phone.
Yeah.
I really want that more. Windows 8 is just barely out, so I don't really know enough. I don't like to judge products by reviews. That's why I buy all these products
Yeah.
and use them. Because if I carry them in my pocket, use them and show them off, then I learn them well enough to speak authoritatively about them. I learn some of the weaknesses, and I learn some of the good points, and I know what other people are doing with them, and heck,
That's exactly
that's the
right.
fun part of life. You know what? That's the fun part of life for me, because
Yeah.
even with iPhones, with Apple
Yeah.
products, my gosh, somebody tells me something I've never thought of. Oh my gosh, that's great, and then I learn it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we've reached a point in the world where there's no longer a bad phone or a bad camera or a bad computer. Everything's kind of plateaued. I mean, they say the greatest
Yeah,
leap of...
that's what I say. That's what I
Yeah.
say. That you can't call any of them bad. They're basically all good. And sometimes you can speak to an individual person, and
Yeah.
knowing what you do about several platforms,
Yeah.
you can determine which platform is the best to recommend to this person.
Yeah.
And even
You-
sometimes,
you
if I have a friend who's really been using one of my Android phones
Yeah.
and doing very well with it, and really loves a lot of the deepness and complexity of it, and setting up the widgets on the screen and stuff
Yeah.
like that, well, that person I'd probably recommend an Android to.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but you know, somebody just out of the blue that I don't know anything about, I'd always recommend an iPhone.
Yeah.
Be
yeah.
safe. You can never lose.
I get that question often. And you can hear by how people ask it what they want. You tell
Yeah.
someone they're a BlackBerry user.
Yeah, I mean, I wish the iPhones had a few of the the features of Android phones, including the larger screen.
Yeah.
And I think we would have held our market share better if we had.
Yeah.
I do know that the fellow behind Android, whom I know very well, is a very strong Macintosh user interface type thinking person.
Yeah. That's
Andy Rubin?
Andy Rubin, yeah.
Yeah, I was on his board for another company.
Yeah.
I know the way he thinks about everything. He's kind of a hacker mind with a total Apple Macintosh mentality.
Yeah.
So you know, Android's only going to go in the directions that Apple would have gone into.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that little Apple DNA thing that
Yeah.
the Palm phones had for a while.
For a long time. In fact, I was just thinking with iOS 6, some of the integrated, unified contact messaging came out on WebOS 3-4 years ago.
Yes, I know. I see a lot of features that everybody you think they're new, and
I mean, some of the great features. I mean, I'm an old Palm
but
user.
I wish some of the gestures of iOS were in the iPhone for for selecting your apps rather than double clicking the home button.
The side swiping and
Yes,
flipboard.
Yes.
Brilliant.
And then on the Samsung, what I like is you take your palm and scroll across the screen snapshot, or cover it up to mute it, or turn it over to mute it.
Yeah.
You know, some little dinky things. But you know, no feature makes a phone better than another. Like you were saying.
Yeah. In fact, a friend of mine just switched to an iPhone, and he said to me, "This is the first product I've ever used that worked as advertised." And I think that comes back to user experience, the ease of use. You know. Can I just ask? I know we're going to run out of time. Just a couple of what gadgets do you use? You use an iPhone, but you use a couple others. What camera do you use? What laptop do you use?
Yes. Okay. Well, the best camera is the one you have on you, so it's usually the one in my iPhone.
Yeah.
And sure, sometimes I carry Androids in my pocket as well, and I might use an Android for the camera. I record voice memos on my iPhone only nowadays.
Yeah. Me too.
And I do it all the time. I do have some DSLR cameras, but I've got the Canon D5 Mark II, 5D Mark II, and that just takes excellent pictures.
Yeah.
Now, for my own pleasure and fun, when I get time, I try to practice with my Leica M9, which is a high technology camera, and that's very, very important to me. But I find that I'm not always taking the time and effort to use it because I'm not that experienced yet.
Yeah.
But I really that's in my future.
Yeah.
My nav systems, navigation. I'm driving a lot. Wherever I am in the world, I might be driving actually, and I want navigation systems. I played around with them for quite a while. I would drive with 7 nav systems going at once in my car.
Okay.
To compare them, I'd be looking at different screens. I'd be looking for the right information for what they say, and trying to judge which ones actually work the best.
Yeah.
And then I would narrow it down to 3, and then eventually come down to 1 or 2 that I use almost all the time. But then they change. The one you like, it's just like with any product. The one you like changes, and it's no longer, they drop down a couple of the features that you really favored it for. That's like things on the cloud do.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly be staying up to date on that.
Yeah.
Right now I'm trying to compare Apple's maps, but they're so new, the new maps.
Yeah.
It's so new that the only comparison I actually did, I compared it to a free program we have in the States called Waze.
Yeah, no ways.
And it's very social, very neat little fun one. But Waze had my street with the wrong name, and it had my house way up somewhere else, and Apple's maps were right on. So despite the controversy, I've got to run into the problems first.
Yeah. I haven't experienced them. For all the outcry about the Apple Maps, I haven't had any of the problems.
Well, there was an outcry about Antenna Gate.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually sat there and I physically put my thumb in the right place, and when I had a weak cell signal, I could stop the cell data and start it. Yes, it was a true thing that was there, but in all my normal use, not thinking about it, I never had a problem that I noticed.
Yeah.
And so I figured this map thing was going to be like that. You put out a map to millions of people, and instantly you're going to get a whole bunch of people to spot any little thing wrong near their home. The first places they look. Oh yeah. So I really, but as far as how it works, I'll have to practice. I haven't had enough practice yet to say good or bad, but I've got lots of navigation backups because I'll tell you, it's like David Pogue wrote an article where he followed the nav system and it took him to some little cul-de-sac and he had to be at a speech and he was late for it.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I could not trust it that deeply.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll use two at once.
Yeah.
I'll use two at once, maybe.
Got to apply a little bit of intelligence.
Yeah.
And just briefly, you obviously use a Mac yourself. Which is your favorite machine and why?
The MacBook Pro Retina, the most recent one. Before that, it was a 17-inch,
Yeah.
and the 17-inch, I thought, how am I going to give up my love of all this screen real estate?
Yeah.
No problem at all. I loved
Yeah.
the Retina from the instant I got it. The
Yeah.
lighter, smaller. The only other one I considered really was an Air, but I like having the, right from Apple, 3/4 of a terabyte disk,
Yeah.
solid state drive.
Yeah.
Because enough for my music
Yeah. Yeah.
and a few movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like to plug in a lot of things at once. Different iPhones usually go into the USB, and maybe I'm running the Ethernet in the Ethernet Thunderbolt port.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
And the MagSafe 2 connector. I wondered why the new connector on the iPhone wasn't MagSafe.
Yeah.
Because it's such a brilliant idea.
I think so too. And what are your thoughts about changing the dock? I mean, to Lightning.
I liked it.
Yeah.
It cost me, because I have about 20 cables in my house in different places
Yeah.
for charging all my devices at once at night, in the bedroom, in my travel, in my office, and I had to switch so many of them.
Yeah.
But to do a human thing, like you don't have to worry which way it plugs in.
Yeah.
Now the other side of that cable that Apple delivers with the phone is USB.
Yeah.
Why didn't they make one of those USBs that can go two ways?
Exactly. Yeah.
That would have been better. Then that would have been better to also.
Yeah.
I think it was more to save space in the phone, to fit more
Yeah,
in. But I applaud it. I wish the whole world could go to that connector instead of micro USB, which I have on every other device in my life.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, why don't they go with the standard? But at first, I said, no, I'm glad Apple's doing something better.
Yes.